Today we're going to be looking at the anti and retro motions of the hip, together with opening up the shoulders, the arms, the hands, the back, and bringing this work into Virabhadrasana number 1, otherwise known as the warrior pose. We're going to do cat and cow. Hands under our shoulders, knees under the hips. And then pressing strongly with 10 bases of the fingers. This is very important. Watch the index. We're going to exhale, and with a retroversion, going to suck that tummy gently right up to the ceiling. And you have to press intensely down with the hands, intensely down with the knees and the toes. And don't forget to breathe. So there's an awful lot of stretch, and if you want to amplify more this stretch, then think of moving the pubic bone towards your forehead and vice versa. And at all times maintain that rooting down, particularly in the hands, but also the knees and the toes. And then we're going to enact an anterior pelvic tilt, or at least the movement. So that means the pubic bone is going to slide behind, and you'll see that that has a kind of domino effect on the whole of the spine. And you keep on sliding that coccyx behind you. And as this happens, you're going to start to move that solar plexus towards the front of your room. And your head can just gently look in front. Keep on feeling that support coming from your base, your hands, your knees, your toes. And then as you breathe in and out, imagine that lower abdomen and the solar plexus continuously moving away from one another. So the pelvis behind, the chest in front. And then we go back to the first kind of position with a retroversion. So exhale, because as you do this, you're going to squash your tummy a wee bit. So it's always a good idea to exhale. Press with the 10 bases of the fingers, into the ground. And use the breath to open up any amount, to feel that stretch as well as that strength. Forehead towards pubic bone and vice versa. And then with the forward motion of the pelvis, we slowly start to bring that coccyx behind and then up towards the ceiling as the solar plexus, the chest, starts to move forward. And then from there, it circles up towards the ceiling. If you'd like to incorporate your neck by bringing your head not only forward but a little bit up towards the ceiling, you can do that. If you have any problems with your neck, then just simply leave your head relatively neutral. More important is this idea of the chest moving forward and up as per normal. One more time, retroversion, exhale. Really work your hands well. Follow your breathing. Keep that throat nice and relaxed. Exhale, the anteversion takes your spine in the opposite way. So as I say, if you want to use your head and look slightly up towards the ceiling, please do so. But make that the last move.
Lower abdomen coming gently in towards the spine. So it's supporting your lower back at all times. And then you can just bring your pelvis into a neutral position and then sit in Vajrasana. And if you're like me with wrists that are a little bit on the delicate side, you might want to just massage them a moment. The hands have worked extraordinarily hard in this, so give them a bit of a break. When you're doing that exercise, by the way, you really need to cover as much ground as possible. So I always advise spreading your fingers as much as possible, covering the ground, giving yourself as much base as you possibly can. From there, Anahatasana, knees under the hips, walk forward and start to again feel that your pelvis is going up and back behind while your solar plexus moves forward and slightly up. So the 2 points of your torso, of your abdomen, are going in different directions. Use your hands also here, really press down with the 10 bases of the fingers. Feel the breathing and how easy it is and how helpful it is. Above all, in the exhalation, you can allow your body to melt into this space that's created. Also, the exhalation allows us to more readily feel our actual weight. And that weight can help us in terms of bringing our chest not only closer to the ground, but forward towards the hands as well. And then breathing in, we can come and sit in Vajrasana. Sigh out a moment. Hands resting quite heavily on the thighs, palms turned up towards the ceiling. And feel this kind of juxtaposition between the spine that is just soaring up towards the ceiling, and yet the heaviness of the hands and the arms that are bringing with their weight the shoulders down. And it should be feeling good. Now, the next exercise we're going to do incorporates that retroversion and the anteversion that we've just been doing. So remember, the retroversion is when your buttocks slide down, the pubic bone comes up, and the anteversion is the opposite. So the pubic bone comes down and the buttocks come up. So you can see that we're talking about the pelvis being essentially a wheel. So either the wheel is going backwards or forwards. And that obviously, as I've already said, has a knock-on effect with the spine. Here's what we're going to do. We'll go back to Anahatasana, but this time fingertips on the ground. And obviously starting off with that forward motion of the wheel of the pelvis. From there, we're going to lift ourselves up away from the floor, going to the right with our shoulders, with our back, and the retroversion will lift us as high as we can go until we reach the center, no longer to the right. And then from there, we're going to start to head off to the left and start to draw towards the ground. And it's the anteversion of the pelvis that's going to bring us down. So if you're a bit unsure, I'm going to do this centrally so you'll see. So just one more time. Starting off Anahatasana, fingertips on the ground. The retroversion will start to draw us away from the floor as we go, this time to the left. And it's going to really get deeper and deeper until it can't get any more of a retroversion than it already is. And by this point, you'll be in the center
of this circle that you're creating with this movement. And then from there, you're going to head off to the right, and the anti or forward motion of the pelvis will start to bring you towards the ground until you reach the center again. Let's do it together. We'll start off first to the right. So fingertips strongly on the ground. The anterior pelvic tilt is bringing your chest forward towards your hands. And then we come to the right with our shoulders, with our back, and the retroversion starts to become more and more pronounced as we come further up towards the ceiling until we're up as high as we can possibly go, and we'll be back in the center. And then we start to head off over to the left, and that anterior pelvic tilt brings us down towards the ground. We'll go back to the right again, the retroversion bringing us up. So we're doing this nice and slowly so we get a good idea of what's happening in the body. Over to the left, the anterior pelvic tilt bringing us down, increasingly so the further towards the ground we get. Again, to the right, the retroversion brings us up. You'll be feeling a lot of work in the hands and in the shoulders, the upper arms. Over to the left, that anteversion brings us towards the ground. And then we'll head off and do the circle going from left to right. So let's go to the left. The retroversion brings us up and forward more than anything else. And then we head off over to the right, the anteversion increasing as we get close to the floor. Back over to the left, retroversion bring us up. Over to the right, anteversion bringing us down towards the ground. And one more time, over to the left, retroversion. And then over to the right, until we come back to the center. You can walk your knees towards your hands. Sit down in Virabhadrasana. And maybe just give your hands a little bit of a shake out at this point. I'd now like to do Adho, Mukha, Svanasana, which is a head down dog pose, and then follow that with Urdhva, Mukha, Svanasana, which is a head up dog pose. So I'll individually do both of those, and then we can shove them together in a kind of small sequence. But also do bear in mind this discussion of the two directions of the pelvis, because we'll be returning back to that aspect. Let's go into Adho Mukha Svanasana first of all. Hands under the shoulders, toes tucked under, knees under the hips. And then we're going to start to move our bottom back towards the heels. Really press with the 10 bases of the fingers. On the next exhalation, lift your knees towards your chest. Spend a moment with your legs bent. Really feel that you can get rid of the floor by pushing it away with your hands. And you should feel that this brings the pelvis closer up towards the ceiling. And then if you want to either completely or partially straighten your legs, then remember those legs disappear into the hips, the head, just shake it and allow it to fall down towards the ground. And Adho Mukha Svanasana, if nothing else, is a wonderful opportunity to extend in all directions your torso. So feel the lower abdomen as per normal, moving towards the spine and your solar plexus, moving towards the hands, the chest moving forward, the pelvis moving back. Two directions for a fabulous sensation. And then on the next exhalation, you can just bring your knees down, have a break in Vajrasana again. Put the fronts of your hands onto your thighs. For some of us, even in Adho Mukha Svanasana, it's quite a lot of hard work on the hands. So just the very fact of putting the fronts of your hands onto your thighs does relieve that stretch, that pressure. One more time, Adho Mukha Svanasana, starting off with the legs bent, feeling the 2 points of the torso moving in 2 different directions. You can sort out the head later. The head should ultimately be really, really relaxed. The ears in line with the upper arms. But first things first, really draw your attention to the 2 points of the torso. Feel the feet sucking up towards the hips. And then when you're happy, just let the head relax, flop down like a rag doll. But that does not drag any other part of your torso along with it. Your torso remains neutral and working hard. And then on the next exhalation, just come down again. Put the fronts of your hands back onto your thighs. Now we're going to do Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So this is a head up dog pose. And again, these 2 points of the torso, which I talk about literally in every session, will still be moving away from one another. But of course, where we place the body is slightly different. Let's do this together. We're going to place our hands shoulders width or even maybe slightly wider. Really feel the 10 bases of the fingers come down and root into the ground. That's really important to protect your hands. Then we're going to come up onto the tips of our toes, so just lifting the knees a little bit off the ground. And then from there, we're going to bring our pelvis as much as we possibly can towards our hands. So if you need to walk a little bit, please do. Okay, and then from there, first things first, we're going to start to extend the legs. But again, by extending the legs, think about the feet coming into the hips. Don't think about moving the feet away from the hips. Okay, that's the first step. Lower abdomen in. And then from there, feel the solar plexus moving up towards the ceiling. So there's a lot to think about in this Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. And feel, as I say, those 2 points of the torso moving away from one another. And then when we come out of this, we bring the lower abdomen in as we bring the knees gently down towards the ground. And even here, bring the fronts of your hands onto the thighs so the wrists get some kind of relief. Feel the breathing return to normal. And then let's do that again. So the base of the fingers pushing strongly into the ground. Toes also pressing strongly. So first things first, suck the feet in towards the hips. So you make the legs really, really strong. As the pelvis moves towards the hands, lower abdomen always in, and the solar plexus moving up as much as it can towards the ceiling. And don't stop breathing. And then when you come out, lower abdomen in first, and then from there you can bring your knees down.
And the fronts of your hands slide onto your thighs. And spend a moment in Virabhadrasana. Now we're going to join up Adho Mukha Svanasana with Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. And that join is going to come thanks to the retroversion. I think we can try this together, although if you're not sure, obviously have a look. So we're going to enter firstly back into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So take a moment to get the pose that you want. Breathe a couple of moments into your Adho Mukha Svanasana. And then it's here that I'd ask you to really focus now on your pelvis. So that retroversion, you're going to bring your pubic bone as close to the chin as possible. And what you'll find with that movement is essentially it brings the whole of the body forward until your shoulders are essentially over your hands. You're doing a kind of plank. And then from there, you can start to suck in your feet and bring your hips as close towards the hands as you can possibly manage it. And as you do this, the solar plexus moves away from the lower abdomen. The lower abdomen comes into the body, close to the spine behind it. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. And then when we come out, we bring that retroversion back in and come back into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So spend a moment refinding that position. And don't be too quick to get the perfect pose. You need time. There's a lot of different elements. So give yourself as much time as you need. Again, with the retroversion bringing us forward, we're going to come into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, sucking the feet into the hips, the pelvis heavy, going not only towards the hands but towards the ground, without bending your legs, and the solar plexus moving up towards the ceiling. And then with a retroversion, we're going to come back into Adho Mukha Svanasana and make whatever alterations you need. And one last time, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, bringing the retroversion into this last pose. And then when you bring your knees towards the ground, remember, suck in the lower abdomen even more so there's no danger about you hurting yourself. And then Virabhadrasana, and those hands and wrists can just spend a moment relaxing on top of the thighs. So with that lovely bend we have just set up thanks to our Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, we're going to finish off with some Virabhadrasana number 1, which uses that strong kind of retroversion and this wonderful extension of the chest. Let's go. We're going to have ourselves placed at the beginning of the mat with the rest of the mat forward. All we'll do is we'll bring our right foot forward and have our feet more or less in line with our hips. And you'll know already that you're on the tips of the toes of the back foot. Make sure that your hips are in line. And then all we're going to do is, leaving this leg slightly bent, we're going to place our hands on our hips. And as we start to bring that front leg into a 90-degree bend, so we're going to have to sit. Okay, we want this 90-degree bend, so don't be up there. Real 90-degree bend. Try not to bend your back leg too much, but bending is okay. You're going to feel this enormous stretch in the back leg. Really keep your hips in line, hands on your hips, and then bring your elbows back to touch one another. Obviously it's not going to happen, but you'll note when you do that action, your chest just flourishes, that solar plexus, and it's not only just going forward, but it's going up. It's doing what it should do. And feel, meanwhile, that lower abdomen, which is strong. Breathe. And then we can come up and change sides. Left foot forward. Distance between the feet, more or less one of your legs. So make sure that the front leg is at 90 degrees. The back leg can bend a little bit, but try not to bend it too much. And then knowing that your hips are square, so most of us are going to have to bring that back hip forward. Place your hands on your hips. Elbows start to come back as much as they can towards one another. Suck in that lower abdomen and then solar plexus. And feel this wonderful extension coming in the torso. And then you can come up, and it is really quite strong. So let's have a bit of a break. Feet parallel under your hips. Legs slightly bent, come into Uttanasana. Make sure your head is lovely and heavy. Sigh out a little bit. Feel those 3 points of the feet really root down into the ground, so the base of the big toe, base of the little toe, central part of the heel, and feel those 3 points also communicate with the hips. And then hands on your hips, elbows pointing towards the ceiling, lower abdomen in towards the spine, solar plexus is moving out. And then you can come up, and we'll try that again. Right leg forward. We're on the tippy toes of our back foot. Come into a 90-degree bend with the right leg. Really make sure your hips are square, so if needs be, bring that left hip forward. You'll have a slight bend in that back leg. That's not a problem. But maybe as we start to stay here, you can start to absorb that back foot into the hip to try and extend that back leg as much as possible. Now this time with the hands and arms, we're going to bring them behind our head, elbows going back behind us, and we're going to start to put the weight of our head into our hands. So Virabhadrasana 1 actually has your hands in Urdhva, either arms going up towards the ceiling. We're not going to do that. This is quite enough, I would say, for today. Come out first of all with the head, and then with the legs, and we'll change sides. So get the front leg sorted, 90 degrees. Then the hips need to be square. Then you can start to think about that back leg and whether we can, in some way, absorb it more into the hips, and by doing so, straighten a little bit more the leg. That's very hard to do. Do your best, and then interlace the fingers behind the head, elbows going back, and you can gently bring the weight of the head into the hands, looking up to the ceiling. And breathe, feel that extension, lower abdomen in. And then come out with your hands and arms first, then your legs. And then on the next belly sigh, you can come down
Maybe take hold of your elbows and let the head drop down. Again, play around with the breathing a little bit. Sighing is quite good because as you sigh, you feel that the torso gets released a little bit more from the hips, and then that whole area can release further down towards the ground. And as this happens, some of you might want to revisit the idea of the feet being sucked into the legs. And the more this happens, the straighter your legs will become. But see what works for you. And then you can put your hands on your hips, maybe go back to bending your legs. If your legs were straight before, lower abdomen in, solar plexus forward. And then we can just come out of Uttanasana.